Hello, this is David Carmona. I observed Miss Mescal's resource room. It was a kinder first and second grade classroom. I did a poster for my project, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you that and talk about my experience in her classroom. So I observed Miss Mescal's room in, I would say, about a month into my student teaching. Mr. Arajo, the principal at the school, offered for me to see some other resource rooms at different levels, just because the range of student needs, there's a it's a very wide range, and especially with age and ability, you see a lot of different things. So I was able actually to see every grade of the resource level from kinder to fifth and sixth, which that school goes to sixth grade. It was a great classroom. She has a very big background in special education. She's really passionate about it. It was really refreshing to be in her classroom. One of the best behaviors or practices, I mean, that I saw was she had a grid, or basically a hopscotch line, in a circle around the classroom, and would often like find times to practice like knowledge from a book that they may have heard or listened to, or even just remembering like sequential numbers like 3, 5, 9, and then having that student say those numbers back to you. uh, I modified it on my poster. I added a dice. When she was playing the game, she was kind of just giving like arbitrary, like just go jump 3 squares, 2 squares, and would kind of base it on the challenge of the question. So if it was a harder question, of course, the students would hop around further, especially with like sequence numbers. 3 would be an average task for them, so maybe 4 numbers would be good, which I think was really great, especially for a special ed classroom. It's just because you're able to tailor it to the student's ability, while getting them to practice things that you know that they need to practice. So after seeing that, I got my ideas running. So I added a dice to my poster. Basically, I was saying, you know, the student would answer the question, and then they would be given a big foam dice, and they can roll that die, and then would progress in that many squares. The classroom trivia game, I said you do need masking tape, large foam dice, and note cards, basically. It's very easy to set up, and it's just a very simple but also just a fun way to get the students moving, and also to get them engaged with what they're learning. And from what I saw, it was a big success in our class. I really had a fun time playing with them, and I think I jumped along and answered some questions and went around the circle. Uh, yeah, all you have to do is basically just number, your squares. You could do letters. You could do, sequential things. Basically, if you were trying to help students memorize, the states, for instance, if you did 50 squares, you could have them memorize the 50 states. So this could be kind of tailored to, your higher tier learners and your lower tier learners. Just basically just kind of make it fit to whatever you need it to be. Um, yeah, so basically that's what I had. My experience in our classroom was absolutely great. I got to spend about a week, so I got to know the students. I got to do some read alouds. I observed the first 2 days and basically just took notes on what she was doing. At the time, they had just recently like had a hack in the school, so their computer systems were down, and she was working around that to the best of her ability. Saw some really good interactive YouTube videos that she was able to get going off of her own internet, and it was just a really cool classroom. So yeah, that was my experience in the observation. That's what I took away from it. I think it's a really cool thing to kind of implement, and I really am excited to try this out in my classroom. I do have some apprehension, of course, that I did notice whenever I was in the classroom, students would hop around when they weren't being tended to, because especially with like younger students, they just kind of wander off and do their own thing if you're not paying attention. So basically, I would want to try to make that a more classroom management thing to kind of compensate for that, to make sure students know that the only time to be hopping around this would be during appropriate times, either when it's okay for the teacher to say students can play together, or the teacher is engaging with them in the game. It's also, she told me that it was great for a lot of her students because they're working on their motor skills, and a lot of them are really striving for that. So hopping from square to square and being able to land on both feet, You can even make it more complicated if you want, but I'm a little bit afraid of that just because kids could also fall and hurt themselves. But you could actually make it like a hopscotch, maybe for like your older grades, just to kind of make it more interesting. And yeah, I think it's just a really good way to kind of take, classroom learning, make it kind of a community event. I think it'd be really good for summative things like just doing a read aloud and then like, coming back, who was the main character or what happened first. These are very, especially for these students, those were questions that were really hard for them to grasp. But I mean, you can always make it more complicated. You could go into depth, and I think you can make the note cards, but I really liked the teacher coming up with the questions on the spot. I think the students respond really well to that as well, and the dice kind of gives you a chance to, not play. No students can accuse you of playing favorites. So yeah, that was my classroom trivia game. Thank you so much for watching my video and listening. Have a great, wonderful rest of your careers. Thank you.